always, I remember, Baba Ramdas also, like in his Still Here, when teaching about how to accept the, change and old age and, death and all this.
Yeah.
There's this is kind of like a teaching. First of all, we have to come with the acceptance. We have to accept that we are all struggling. So once we accept, because many times, we don't accept that we are struggling. So, just kind of accept that we are struggling, but only thing, don't try to get ourselves out of the struggle, because that is impossible. That's the truth. And I think that is what I got from Buddha's teaching, because don't try to escape from struggle. Struggle is there. Just remain in struggle. But only thing what we can do about it is we can stop struggling over the struggle. And that is the journey, I think. That's a spiritual journey that Buddha was trying to teach. And I always take that as a Buddha's teaching.
Beautiful. Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Hi, everyone. It's Raghu back with Mindrolling, and I have an esteemed guest today, someone I've been looking very forward to talking with and hanging out with. And I'm going to pronounce it, it's ZaChoeje Rinpoche, but that is an abbreviation, and although I see it everywhere. ZaChoeje?
Yes.
How did I do?
You did well.
So, welcome to Mindrolling.
Thank you.
So, I'm really, I hope you don't mind, but I'd love to hear a bit about your journey from being recognized as a sixth ZaChoeje Rinpoche, and as just what happened to you and how you grew up, and all the way till this momentous moment when you were recognized by His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. So can you just talk about what was it like growing, because I know you grew up in India, right?
Yes, yeah. Thank you, first of all. Tashi Delek Raghuji. And thank you for inviting me here to talk. And it is an honor. And yes, my journey into this spiritual life has some very, what do you call, interesting.
Yes.
It's kind of like I grew up in India as a refugee child. My parents are from Tibet, and they met in Tibet in the refugee camp. And I grew up in India as a very ordinary boy. And I had a strong kind of like a background from my grandparents who are very religious. So,
did they come over too? Did they make it too?
Yes. They also...
The whole family came at one time? Basically parents, grandparents?
They did, yes.
Through over the mountains, as many?
Yes, they did over the mountain from actually
Himalaya.
through Bhutan.
Through Bhutan.
Yes, yeah. So just kind of like, and I was young. Sometime I kind of not so religious myself. I question a lot.
Yeah.
I was like questioning my parents and my grandparents, like, why do you do that? What is the point? What is the logic behind? So I don't know. Somehow I have some sort of like a strong, rational and logical mind as the nature. I don't know. And so I wasn't expecting or thinking about becoming a monk until I was 16. And then at the age of 16, then something suddenly, I call it suddenly, because I was just kind of like living an ordinary life in a boarding school.
Oh, yeah.
And then
in South India, was it?
No, actually, I studied beginning until like in ninth class in southern. There's a Tibetan school for Tibetan set up by Indian government. And then after ninth standard, then I was admitted into this Varanasi. There's a Tibetan school for higher studies. And so I actually got admitted into that school. So there was kind of like a university. And so I was planning to study. And then suddenly one day, just kind of like my dad showed up at the school. And also I wasn't expecting, because I just came into the school. It was 3 months only. And then coming all the way from South India to Varanasi, you know how far that journey is.
Yes, yes.
And then I was kind of like, it was a big shock in a way that how he actually came. And then another big shock was as I was walking down the stair to see him at the meeting room, the first time ever in my life, I saw my father bowing, folding his hand and with a katak. And there were a few people, like a delegation member, which I don't know them. And I only know my father. So I just it was a huge shock for me because I know my father, he was in the military and he was a little bit kind of tough guy, that he was a very typical father that doesn't show much of his emotion, So when I first saw him bowing, just to his 16 years old son. And of course, at that instant, I will not take it for myself. I will think that, oh no, maybe somebody is behind me. So I just looked back and there was like nobody. I was only walking towards him. And he was so humble and, bowing his head and folding his hand. And I just kind of thought, what is wrong with my father? Why he's doing that? And I went to him and then he just pulled up the, one envelope letter, and he handed that to me. And I said, "Hey, Dad, what's this? What are you doing?" And then he just didn't say anything. He just handed me the envelope. And I look at the envelope. The envelope was addressed from His Holiness the Dalai Lama office. And I opened it, and then I saw like the letter from His Holiness, and there was one seal, and then just kind of saying, I'm going to recognize you as the 6th reincarnation of ZaChoeje, Lama. So that was the moment I changed from an ordinary boy to a sacred boy in our society. Yeah.
Oh my God. What must you have been thinking when that was a moment? Can you remember? It was very transformational, probably.
It was a very interesting move, like a moment, sort of like I was a little bit in a shock. It was an honor, just kind of like I never met His Holiness Dalai Lama in person, only went into the public talk and, how we revere him, how we respect him when he comes to our community. And, just never, ever imagined that I could get a personal letter from him, and then on top of that, just stating my name there, saying I'm going to recognize you as a, reincarnation, which, to be honest, I don't even know who I was reincarnation of. So I'm just kind of shocked. And what is this? Is this like a dream? Or what's going on? And I was a little bit, and then they let me sit on the chair, and everybody there, including my father, they were starting to do prostration, like a Tibetan traditional prostration, that I never had that kind of people doing prostration that to me in my life before. So it is like all very, what do you call, too much overwhelming in a way, because I was like, what is going on? Why they are doing this to me? Are they mistaken?
Unbelievable.
Something like that, that moment was full of excitement, a lot of kind of nervousness, I would say, like a hesitation.
Did you later find how it was that this selection happened?
Yes, actually, later, after that, then actually my first question was very interesting to my father. Right after that, I said, I feel uncomfortable here because I don't know. There are like some very old man who was a disciple of that previous one.
Oh.
And he was talking to me something on his knees, and then telling me something. And then his dialect was from Eastern Tibet. And we are not so used to that Eastern, Tibet dialect.
Yeah.
So he was murmuring something, but I cannot understand. I can pick up some of the words, what he was saying. But then somehow I just kind of like said, I'm so feeling uncomfortable here. Can I go back to my dormitory room? And they are like, okay, you can go. And then I was just sitting there and thinking, what am I going to do? And then later, just kind of, I went to my father, and the first question that I asked was, do I have to become a monk?
Good question.
Yeah. And then he was like, I think so. And I was like, oh no, I was revolving actually against to become a monk when I was a younger boy, because my grandparents, as I mentioned earlier, they were very religious. So they were occasionally, they pushed me, like insisting me sort of like, oh, you have to go to monastery to become a monk. And I'm like, no, never. So yeah, then just kind of like the next question that I asked the people who are there, just kind of like, how, isn't that mistaken or what? Like, how did, you guys, came to know about me? Like how, this process actually went. And then, he told me the elder man who was there, I need a little bit of translation from this one younger monk,
Oh, yeah.
And then he was telling me that the process was that the previous ZaChoeje Rinpoche was died in Tibet, and when the Chinese Revolution Army came to Tibet, and somehow they offer him some kind of position, but he actually denied it. And so then they didn't like it, and somehow they arrested him, and they took him to prison. And so he left in prison for like 4 years, and then he passed away. And but that time there was a very kind of difficult to communicate, with people who are in Tibet and people who are in exile. So somehow, even after he died, they didn't know that he passed away, sort of like a long time. And then, like I think it is like in 70s, like late 70s, that there was a open door for the communication between the Tibetans in exile and Tibetan within. So they came to know that their master passed away. So then he said that he actually he asked His Holiness suggestion that one day he had an audience with His Holiness the Dalai Lama and said, we have a one Lama, but he already passed away, and I don't know if I should recognize his reincarnation. And then suddenly His Holiness the Dalai Lama actually said to him that, of course you should, And then he's like, okay, so if we should, then can you help me? And then His Holiness actually said, yes, I will help you. And then somehow through his divination, he checked like there's where the reincarnation is. Then he actually said that from my divination, the reincarnation is actually born, or like right now he is in India. And so the specific place is also, he is in South India. And there's few Tibetan settlements there. And then he suggests that, you go and get the names of the boys who are like 14, 15, 16, who are kind of like whose ages are that. So they actually sent a delegation member down to South India within the Tibetan community, and they collect the name of the boys, and somehow they collected my name without my knowledge. I didn't know that my name was, my name went on the list.
Yeah.
So the name went to His Holiness, and then His Holiness checked through the name, and then when he came to my name, and then he said, "Yes, this is the boy I'm looking."
Really?
And so that is how he decided.
So it was really him all the way through. I'm not even familiar. I've heard stories of him being involved in the process, but usually there's somebody else. A lama might have a dream that points in the right direction, or the divination happens through someone else. But this is all His Holiness, right?
Yes, this in my case it was all His Holiness. Yeah. And also, there is a time being that actually His Holiness was kind of not making the recognition. Then there was even around that time, but I don't know. Somehow he sees something that he thought, maybe historically, my previous ones has some kind of historical kind of things, with the Dalai Lama.
With the Dalai Lama. Wow.
Yeah. So I think maybe he, somehow maybe there's he thought that would be beneficial for the survival of Tibetan culture or something.
Yeah. Wow. And the name means accomplished spiritual abundance, right? I saw.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So it is my... No, actually, it was my birth name.
Oh, your birth name.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. Chunjur Tundup is, that just kind of one... There was one Rinpoche in our community. He actually named me Chunjur Tundup. So the meaning is like that. So actually, ZaChoeje is a kind of like a title. Actually, it's not really a name. It's because how the name came about is Za, or the Hor. Sometimes we say Za, sometimes like Hor in a larger sense, which is kind of like if we go back into the history, there's so many things because there is some connection between the Mongolia and my region in the eastern Tibet, So
Mongolia,
Za is actually the name of the region. It is literally, it means, there is one river that falling through the eastern Tibet called ZaChoeje. That ZaChoeje is, I think it is English, it is called Mekong, I think.
Oh. Wow.
That river, so there is one valley that actually falling through, and that whole region is called, there's a lot of a nomad region, and it's called the Za region. So that's pretty big in the eastern Tibet. And so because he lives there, so the name actually came to him. And ZaChoeje is somehow, it's a title that was given by fifth Dalai Lama, which means kind of like ZaChoeje means the Lord of the Dharma, the, Dharma Lord.
Yeah.
So that is the title. Yeah.
That's pretty good. But accomplished spiritual abundance is not bad either.
Yes.
Oh. And there was, though, I did see that. So you, aside from His Holiness Dalai Lama, and you got teachings from him directly, I think, too.
Yes. I was very fortunate. Yes.
Yeah, really. Yongdzin Ling Rinpoche was also.
Yes.
And what role did he play?
After my recognition, I actually went to see His Holiness Dalai Lama first. And so, I had an audience with His Holiness, and His Holiness was always very jolly and, sort of laughing. And so he was kind of I was very nervous actually in the beginning before, that was my first time seeing him. And then, just kind of
teenager,
I don't know.
Right?
Yeah.
You were still a teenager.
Yeah, I was 16 and didn't know what to say, how to do. And I was keep asking a lot of questions to some elder people, how should I do? What should I do? Because this is so unfamiliar for me. And they teach me And I was going there with a lot of like a nervousness, and then when I get to see him first, and he was like I think he was even not sitting, he was just standing there. And he was like, come, like that, And then he started laughing, and he's like, oh, I thought you're much smaller, but you look bigger in person. Yeah. So yeah, and right up there, when I was having an audience, I was very fortunate that actually he gave me this one transmission, which is actually in our tradition we call it like a guru yoga. The guru yoga is kind of like a Lama Nenjo in Tibetan. So it is something to do with your mantra, and then like a visualization, like the visualizing the Manjushri at the heart of your guru. So to actually get the kind of to develop your wisdom. And and I wasn't expecting, he just decided right there. He said, okay, I'm going to give you this transmission. Just listen, okay, like that. And then God. I was like, okay, so I just sit like this. And then he started, doing the chanting and giving me instruction on how to do these visualizations and, giving the mantra transmission. And then after I came back, then the people who are with me, they are like, oh, you are so lucky, we didn't request him. He just gave it to you, I was like, I didn't know anything about that. Later I found that that was a very, auspicious and very fortunate thing. Yeah.
Not to mention just being in that presence of this extraordinary being, His Holiness, where I have seen him many, many times over the years in the West. And I never, though, requested or karma was dictating that there was I'd be a direct one-on-one. It always seemed to me that his presence was so powerful that he reached everybody in a way that made them feel completely connected to him.
That's true. Yes. And and your question about un-enlightened Rinpoche, after I met with His Holiness, then I made an appointment to see his teacher. Actually, un-enlightened Rinpoche is Dalai Lama's official tutor, the master. And so I want to, Ling Rinpoche, I want to have a connection, spiritual connection with him. And also, it was a little unfortunate because that time he was sick. There's and he was not letting, sort of like people come to see him, but it was kind of like a bad timing. But at the same time, then I was able to go to see him just for a short, and I, just kind of request, do just a little kind of mantra, transmission from him. So that was pretty much about it. Yeah. And then after a few days, or I think he passed away. Not long
really?
After
you saw him?
Not long after
but
I saw him.
You got the mantra.
So. Yes, yeah. So I just got the opportunity to just directly connect with him for just a little bit.
And then you went into training, I'm assuming.
Yes, then, I was kind of asking His Holiness suggestion. I just kind of, I asked, what should I do, And he said, you should go and study. Just kind of there is a monastery in South India. There are 3 big monasteries.
Yeah.
Like Sera, Drepung, Ganten. And somehow my predecessors, previous ZaChoeje, they went to Drepung, and that is a tradition that I have to join the, Drepung, monastic academic studies, And then even those days, I was very lucky that I even asked His Holiness suggestion. So who should I study with? Please appoint me a teacher, because I'm not so familiar with the monastic studies. And he was very kind, and he even tell me to whom I should study with. So, and that was a very, kind of good for me, because when I went to ask for my teacher, I said, His Holiness told me to go to you.
That made it simple.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, that's great. But then, well, this is many, many years later, of course. I mean, this was, you were 16, 17 years when that happened. And then it must have been, what, 20 years of this going forward?
Yeah,
something
actually, traditionally, to complete the teaching studies in our monastery, it will take like 20 to 25 years. Again, I actually studied only 10 years in the monastery. So somehow, I don't know, maybe kind of like I was doing a kind of like a fast study. I'm not that smart, but somehow, I have this ability to take an exam very well.
Oh, you do?
Because our monastery system is, as a Rinpoche, we have some speciality that the advantage, advantage that other monks don't have, is that if, as an individual, if you can, give the examination or take the examination, then you can do like a 2-3 class in 1 year. So
Wow.
I took that advantage. I said,
did?
okay, I'm going to take that advantage and going to study in 1 year, 3 class, and then, then give the, exam, and then just kind of, if you pass, then it is,
Move
you
to
pass.
the next. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is how I actually did. So I did sometime like a 2 class, sometime 3 class. So I actually kind of complete my geshe a little bit faster than the usual.
That's so great. And it's oral. It's not like we know here. It's usually just, well, not all the time. There is here there are certainly you have to do an oral presentation as well as written and so on.
Yes.
But that's very much a big part of tradition and discourses and people arguing over specific points from the teachings and so on, right?
Yes. The main thing is a debate, as you know.
Debate, that's it. That's
yeah. Tibetan, kind of method of studying to go in depth into the, studying of the wisdom is we actually, it's kind of like we modernize a little bit in the monastery too, because before it used to be only debate, oral debate, like we have a specific sort of like a physical gesture, how we do that. Like with the clapping the hand, and then sometimes the monks get too aggressive also. And well, then later, actually, they kind of changed the academic system a little bit. When I was there, that we have to do a written test also. So there's like a paper that, like a usual school, they will have a question and we have to write all about what we have learned. And then also there is a memorization kind of test, which like in 1 year, like you have to, whatever subject that you are studying, you have to memorize, at least 30 pages. So, and that, to be able to get to the next class.
Really?
So for me, it was a very big responsibility, because if I'm taking a 3 class, then I have to do 90 pages.
Oh, jeez.
So, and interestingly, I have a good memorization ability.
Yeah.
And I actually do, like, I did a lot of kind of like effort. I put a lot of effort, because my time in the monastery, it was just totally into the studying. Like in the morning, I have to, memorize the, text, and then go to the teacher to learn. And then later, just kind of go to the debate ground to debate. So it is like from morning 5 o'clock until like 11 o'clock in the evening. It was just like every day. So not every day, just once a week we have a kind of like a holiday.
Yeah.
But then it was an intense studying days. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing that you're plucked out of nowhere and suddenly thrown into this is extraordinary.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, I mean, it's a testament to the reality of karma and reincarnation, isn't it? Oh boy. So then you end up how do you end up in America? What prompted you?
Actually, I after my graduation as a, we call it Geshe Harampa.
Mm.
That is the degree that we get, after you complete your studies. And then after, Drepung, then I actually went 1 year more to higher studies there's a tantric college, somehow in the Drepung, what we study is mostly is kind of related to the sutra.
Mm.
And then, when we go to the tantric college, then we have to learn a lot of rituals, rituals. And there's a whole another kind of dimension of the, Tantrayana. So, then, I joined the tantric college for 1 year. And then it was kind of like traditionally, I'm done with my studies, So, then monastery actually was looking, because we have the sacred music, sacred dance
Yeah.
kind of going around in America and Europe, for the fundraising purpose for the, monastery.
Yeah.
And so we have this group that was actually kind of like a co-sponsored by Richard Gere Foundation, because he was very involved in supporting the Tibetan. And so that group would need a leader, sort of like a group leader. So the monastery appointed me that, can you go to America to lead this group, and you don't have to do much organizing. There's the organizing schedule and everything is there. You just go and be with the group. And then if there is a question or, just look after the group and do the things, And first I was like, actually, I had a plan. I'm thinking to go to, because I got an invitation to go to Japan and some kind of one of my friend,
Yeah.
So then, I have one teacher in the monastery. So I couldn't make a decision. So I went to my teacher and I said, I am in dilemma right now, because personally, I want to go to Japan and the monastery is asking me to go to America. And so what should I do? And then he actually kind of scolded me. He said, of course, you have to go to America because monastery asks you. Because, your personal choice is not important. Monastery choice is important.
Yeah.
So he was very clear, he said, and that is how I accept to go with the group for 1 year. And that was in 1998.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you for coming and staying
Thank
here
you.
and giving us the beneficence of your tradition and your teachings. This is, it's a two-edged sword. What happened in Tibet, what the Chinese did. The
That's
horror
true,
is the horror.
Yes.
But I personally have taken advantage and met incredible lamas and taken teaching. Certainly, His Holiness is the best example, but Kalu Rinpoche and others.
Yes.
And was fortunate. Actually, had, to me, it's darshan. How they call it in India.
Right.
Of 16th Karmapa. He was like my guru beyond polarity. Okay. I mean, when I actually went to see the 16th, it was a black hat ceremony in Los Angeles, actually. And then I got about 10 feet away from him because we were all in a row with the katas and, going to do that. And I was 10 feet or something away. And then suddenly I felt this extraordinary spaciousness, which I only had felt before with Neem Karoli Baba. And I went, oh my God, it's the same thing. Of course, it's the same thing. True. There is only one thing, which is what Maharaj used to say to us, sabek in Hindi. Also, there's only one thing,
Yes.
And so to have that happen for us, especially Westerners, to where that would not have happened had the Chinese not done what they did. is
true.
the double-edged sword, right? I mean,
That's
pretty
true.
amazing.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
true. Yes.
So
Yes.
here's just something to sort of trigger you a little bit, because I saw something and I thought, yeah, here's some things that I know that you could offer, because our audience uh, is all interested. They may not know anything about Tibetan Buddhism, but they do know that they would like to have their lives more in balance. They would like to understand a little bit more of true nature, how to deal with suffering, and so on. So I saw this little quote from you, so maybe you could talk about it a little bit. Stop struggling against the struggles of life. Can you give us a few words about that?
Yes, actually, the teaching of the Buddha kind of spread into many different parts of the world. And then I was kind of a little bit shocked. One time I was in Mexico, and then somebody came to me and said that Buddha said life is suffering. Isn't that a little bit negative to look at life?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that is what is going on. That is sort of like a Buddha said life is suffering. And then I said, that is a little bit kind of lost in translation. Actually, when Buddha teach, he actually didn't say exactly the word like that. Like the first teaching that Buddha gave after his enlightenment, which is popular, teachings called the Four Noble Truths, right? Mm-hmm. It's like the first word actually Buddha actually said in the, as a teaching is, he said, in Tibetan, we say, Dini Dunge Pagbe Demba O. That is the translation from the,
Pali.
Sanskrit. Yeah, and Pali and the Sanskrit. And so that is if you literally, if you look at that word, Dini means this is, this is.
This is.
This is. This. Dini means this is, And Dunge Phagbe Demba O means Dunge Phagbe Demba. Dunge means kind of like this word it is translated as a truth of suffering, Truth of suffering. Sometimes from the Western point of view, when we say suffering, we always kind of related it to pain. Something like suffering. Suffering is something to do with the pain and stuff like that. So just kind of from a Buddhist point of view, when we say Dunge Demba, the truth of suffering, it is not only the pain, just kind of even sort of it goes a little bit wider, even the, we call it the pleasure, the worldly pleasures, they are also the nature of suffering, because it is not a suffering, but it is a nature of suffering, which means, for example, if you are thirsty and you drink a water, then at that moment, there's a joy. But if you keep drinking that water, then what happens is it will change into suffering, just like a food, eating food is, there's a joy in it. But if you just keep eating it, then it will turn into, miserable thing, right? Yeah. So that's why it's called the Gurva, means changeable, it's a changing, so that is also another part of the truth of suffering. And then also the base, our own 5 aggregates, our form, our feeling, our, just kind of karma and all the, even the consciousness, that we have. These are all the base of suffering, because, so that's why it's called the truth of suffering. So somehow it is not, it is the truth of suffering. I think there is a difference between the word suffering and the truth of suffering. So the exact word that Buddha actually said, that this is the truth of suffering. So, so sometimes people take that word truth, they just say this is suffering. So there's a difference, the statement is this is the truth of suffering, So then it's kind of like I came to understand, because if Buddha said in the first thing after his enlightenment, that should be some there's a lot of meaning there. It should be like the most profound thing that he has actually maybe proclaimed, or he has said. So I just even in during my monastery studies and all this, I did a lot of kind of research, why Buddha said this, why is what is the point, and what is this. And then somehow I came into this word in English as a struggle, because somehow and it is truth that everything is struggling, like I'm struggling, you are struggling, we are all are struggling. And the whole, if you look at the each and every parts of the universe, everything is struggling, right? It is struggling to survive one more moment from an impermanence point of view. As long as something is impermanence, momentarily changing, then it is struggling. Something that is moving, something that is momentary, it is struggling. So somehow the fact, it is the truth. The fact is that we are all struggling, sort of so the difference between the enlightened being and the unenlightened being is, we are all struggling, but the enlightened being, they stop struggling over the struggles. And we struggle over the struggles. So that is kind of that is the truth of suffering. That's it. And then if you look into that, then from there, actually you can understand a lot of truth. It is like it is like the beginning of the acceptance. So you have to accept, right? It's just kind of when you understand that your truth, the basic truth of our existence is that we are struggling, that you cannot get out of the struggle anyway. The struggle is part of nature. And it is, also always, I remember, Baba Ramdas also, like in his Still Here, when teaching about how to accept the, change and old age and, death and all this. There's this is kind of like a teaching. First of all, we have to come with the acceptance. We have to accept that we are all struggling. So once we accept, because many times, we don't accept that we are struggling. So, just kind of accept that we are struggling, but only thing, don't try to get ourselves out of the struggle, because that is impossible. That's the truth. And I think that is what I got from Buddha's teaching, because don't try to escape from struggle. Struggle is there. Just remain in struggle. But only thing what we can do about it is we can stop struggling over the struggle. And that is the journey, I think. That's a spiritual journey that Buddha was trying to teach. And I always take that as a Buddha's teaching.
Beautiful. Thank you, Rinpoche. One of the things I actually have, and a friend of mine who also does podcasts, we have been talking a lot over the years about what another friend of mine called the movie of me. We are so self-centered. We wake up in the morning. We are the writer, the director, the producer, the chief protagonist of our movie, and it goes on 24/7. And it's all about repelling the uncomfortable and desiring what we think is comfortable.
Yes.
Say something about how to extract ourselves. So the whole thing that we've been doing is called From the Movie of Me to the Movie of We, to find the interconnectivity, to stop the selfish behavior. So what are some of the things you think? I think I even heard you talk about this in one talk that you gave, actually.
Yes, I think that's a very good metaphor.
Yeah, yeah,
Like we are the director, we are the actor, the
yeah,
character,
yeah,
and within our own mind we play everything. We
yeah.
play like and and somehow in that state we actually sort of like we are everything in there. So that is so we live in the story, just kind of that is because we have a story of who we are, sort of like and sometimes I just kind of want to use that a very simple English language called the idea of yourself,
Mm,
idea of who you are.
mm,
And
mm.
because we have this idea of who we are based on however our upbringing is, how what people tell us and how, because this idea is kind of like we have many different ideas, like if you are like from a career point of view, if you are a doctor, then there's the
Yeah,
idea
but
of being a
yeah,
doctor,
yeah,
and if you are a monk and you have an idea of being a monk, if you're like a husband, if you're a wife, you are like, like a mother, you are a child. Sort of all these ideas, it's kind of like and then around that idea, we have so many different stories. And then we are trying to live that story up, like all these stories. And then somehow I always think that we always mistake, and that we think that the idea of who we are is the real who we are. That is the big kind of like what do you call ignorance from a Buddhist point of view. I call it,
yeah, yeah.
because that's kind of like a idea of who we are is not who we are. Sometimes I also kind of like in a very simple kind of like a casual conversation way, I always say, you have an idea of an apple. Can you imagine an apple in your mind right now? And what do you think? That apple in your imagination, is that a real apple or is it a fake apple or is it not a real? Are you Can you eat it? you know so it's just kind of like a but that's very simple, right? Everybody can understand. Yes, I can sit in my own small room and I can imagine 100 elephant, but there's no 100 elephant in my small room. But
Mm,
we have an idea of 100 elephant.
mm,
But then, like many times, what we do with that is we bring the idea, the story of what is happening in our own living room, and then we get kind of like misunderstood that everything is actually real, like
yeah.
that everything. So that is the kind of like to have an idea, to have a kind of like a thoughts, to have a notion is not a problem actually. It is okay. Sometimes it is fun to have a imagination. It is fun to have an idea. But the thing is, just kind of don't get carried away by the idea as thinking that it is real.
Mm,
So
mm.
when you actually make that distinction, then actually it is kind of like it's fun. It's more fun to,
Right.
because it's just kind of like, oh, okay, that's just a story. It is just, I'm writing that story and
Yeah,
I'm playing it.
yeah.
And it is like not, it is not really a real. I think that will really help
Mm,
us to deal with the reality in our
mm.
life in a
Right.
better way, I
Yeah,
think.
and yeah,
Yeah.
and stop the grasping and the attachment and the
Yes, yes, yeah.
self-seriousness. I am this and
Yes, yes,
doctor.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So there now I know part of your teachings are around Dzogchen. Am I correct? Yes.
Yes.
Um, which is just simply being in present. It's what Ram Dass called "be here now." Actually,
Yes,
is
yes, yeah.
Dzogchen, right?
Very simple.
Yeah. So I read something, and it said there's a way of recognizing the nature of mind through devotion. So that very much interested me. Path of bhakti, as I mentioned,
Yes, that's
that's a
true.
path. Simply through heartfelt devotion, a practitioner can attain realization even though their teacher might have passed away or was nowhere near them physically. But the truth is, the nature of mind was introduced. Can you comment on that? Because I know and many people know that in Tibetan Buddhism, teacher is paramount importance, and devotion is certainly there. But I just love these words, simply through heartfelt devotion.
That's true. That's true. Actually, devotion plays very important roles in the spiritual development from a Tibetan Buddhist point of view. Sometimes it takes like a very important roles that one of the Master Lama Tsongkhapa, actually he in one of his he said that's the statement, which means devotion to your guru is the foundation of all the spiritual development. So he actually began with this teaching. So that's like how important the devotion plays roles, So that is kind of like I think Tibetan, like especially teaching like a Dzogchen teaching, there is a way to understand the nature of mind through the devotion. So that the devotion somehow it is like the faith, like in Tibetan we say kind of like it's like a faith and devotions are kind of like a
faith.
When you have a faith, So when we describe the faith, like the faith has a three different sort of like a type, like we call it like the first kind of faith is called the admiring faith. So the faith that admire, and then the second kind of faith is called the inspiring faith. So the faith that is kind of like you wanted to become, become that or become like that, that is you are inspired. So then the third kind of faith, which is the highest form of faith, is called the trusting faith. So it is like the trust, so the devotion actually comes to the third one, which is the trust. So which is so to be able to trust, trust yourself and trust your guru, which means you have to totally, kind of like what do you call? It's not a blind faith, but it is something that you just have to totally put yourself, like to that, So it's like somehow there is some kind of like no matter what, right? Yeah. So then, like when your guru, like the devotion, like you are the devotee, like in the practice of devotion, you become a devotee, and then your guru become an object of devotion, right? So it's like but when we actually practice this trust faith, that time actually what we are practicing is we are trying to see that non-duality nature between your own, basic truth and your guru. So somehow it is like there is a process of learning how to actually put what you call sort of like how to understand, how to understand that your guru is the manifestation of your own ultimate basic goodness, which is the Buddha nature. So that basic goodness is the nature of our mind, right? That's the nature of that. Like when we go into the understanding the mind, so the mind actually, the ultimate truth nature of the mind, like we always call, we have a Buddha nature, we have a Buddha nature. So that Buddha nature, what we are simply saying is, that clear light nature of the mind. So the mind has this kind of like quality. That is why one of the like Indian great master Dharma Kirti, which his Holiness the Dalai Lama always quote him.
Yeah.
Sem ge rangshin weselwa timanamne loburwa means sem means mind. Okay, so the nature of the mind is clear, like a clear light. It's a clear. And timanamne loburwa means the stain on the mind. They are temporary. So ultimately, mind has a nature of clarity, sort of clear light. So that is the nature of the mind. So that is sort of like when we actually practice learning, connecting with our true nature of the mind, then if you actually kind of like make that with the devotion practice, then somehow it is like you are able to see your guru and your nature ultimately same
as one.
So in an ultimate level, it is not a trusting to the outside guru. Actually, it is the trust that we are generating to your own mind. So this is like, so it is the, that because, the trust, it is like, ultimately it is it's a devotion to self.
Yes. Yeah, there's a great, actually Ram Dass used to quote this great saint in India who died in the 50s, Ramana Maharshi, who was a non-dualist. I'm sure you've heard. He used to say, God, Guru, Self, One. And that's basically what we're saying, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, God. I hate to, I could go on for a long time, Rinpoche. But I know I don't want to take up too much of your time. But I'll probably come back and say, can we do another one soon? Because this is so enlightening. But I wonder if we can close, if you could do a short guided meditation practice, where bodhicitta, whatever it is that comes to you.
Okay, yeah. Just before we do the closing, as you said, Ramana Maharishi said something about the God, yourself, and one.
Yeah.
We have a very similar saying also in Tibetan. We say Lama, Yidam, Rangsim, Ngoyerme. Lama means guru. Yidam means deity. And Rangsim means your mind. Non-dual. They are all one.
Yeah.
Like
beautiful.
That.
Same.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. So I think we will conclude that just kind of with short meditation, and most of you actually know how to kind of sit kind of like in a meditation. Most important thing is just keep your back straight and relax, and if you're sitting on the chair, just kind of like keep your feet flat on the ground. So sometimes that's kind of like in Tibetan we say very important. The meditation posture is important as the real meditation, because we rely very much on our physical body at the moment, and then we can actually learn so many things from our physical body, because body always live in the moment. And mind is the one that is not living in the moment. It goes on and off towards past and future. So just kind of like if your body is in a kind of right position, then lu tang sim tang means Tibetan kind of have a saying, if your body is in a right position, correct position, then your the channel will be in the right position. And then if your channel is in the right position, then all the wind that goes into that channel is in the right position. When all the winds are following rightly or kind of correctly, then our mind will also go, correctly. So our meditation is basically to, bring our mind to go in a, right way or correct way. So just sit our body in a kind of meditation posture, and just relax everything, and then just allow yourself to feel the relaxation. and use your breathing as a vehicle to pay attention, to bring your mind into the moment. Just feel this joyfulness of being alive with this each breathing, and let yourself totally connected with your body into the present moment, and let yourself feel very alive as your mind is connected to your body. And then beyond our body, there's a feeling, emotion. Just let all the emotion there. Don't try to control. Don't try to change. Simply acknowledge whatever it is. And gently and slowly let yourself accept your feelings and let it unfold without any struggles. And then beyond our emotion, notice all these different thoughts that is arising. Just to witness and watch your thoughts without judging whether you have a positive thoughts, negative thoughts, neutral thoughts. Just simply watch. Notice that all these thoughts are constantly moving, changing. Let them move, let them change. Allow yourself not to struggle with these struggling thoughts. And notice your thoughts are like the clouds. Your true nature of mind is like the sky. Let yourself experience this sky-like nature of your own mind. And let your mind be totally open and spacious. As an effect of your open mind, let your heart be totally open. Allow your love and compassion to be open. And with this compassion experience, you let yourself have an aspiration to achieve enlightenment, to help yourself and all beings. And from this moment, you make a decision that you will bring this aspiration throughout your life. All right. Thank you. So with this meditation, we will conclude, and I will do some short Tibetan chanting prayer. ZaChoeje Rinpoche, Maje Panam Gejuroche, Geba Nyamba, Mevaya, Kone Kondo Pewara Show. Okay.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Rinpoche.
Yeah. Thank you.
Everybody, ZaChoeje Rinpoche, we are honored to have you here. This is the Be Here Now network, so it's appropriate.
Yes.
These teachings fall into
Yeah.
completely in line. And so happy to have you. And we're gonna connect people up with you through the foundation and books and seminars and courses. I know you do a lot of work around all of these topics. So happy to have people connect up with you and everybody. You'll find it in the show notes, and you go to Mindrolling, BeHereNowNetwork.com/Mindrolling, and you'll find Rinpoche and be able to be connected with him. And we will see you all next time. Again, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.